Hey everybody, welcome back to our New Light Activation for Ella. We are on day 11. 11 has a lot of mystical significance. I know a lot of people see the number 1111, and it's become to be associated with spirituality. Anyway, there are reasons for that. This is 11. Okay, we're talking today about forgiveness. Yesterday we talked about the Olmec, about the present moment and how it exists in a different dimension, a little bit beneath this three-dimensional reality. The Olmec, the depth, always being something that connects two opposites. So to connect two opposites that really can't connect in this world, there has to be a force that's higher than both of them that is not really from this world. So just that minor recap on yesterday, and today we're going to be talking about mystical forgiveness. I'm going to try not to make it too long, but we all understand that forgiveness is a kind thing to do, that when you forgive someone, you make new space in your heart for them and so forth. But that's not the level that I want to address here. I want to talk about forgiveness and changing the past. So again, past, present, and future. One of the things that happens when we're not right in the moment, where we have infinite access to the essence, the inner of what is in ourselves, in the universe, in another, in the emerging potential. So one thing that that happens when we're not there is that we tend to carry the past along with us into the present. Every trauma that we have, every breakdown, every time somebody in our childhood said something that hurt us, maybe didn't see us, every time we're embarrassed, every time we try something and fail, every time. I remember when I was a kid, it's one of my core memories, actually. We all have these, and they're all they're not all, but in many cases, they're not really deep traumas, and yet they can create a cascade effect that changes our life. So in my case, I was in school, I was in first grade, and I was young. I was young in first grade. I was about half a year younger than most of the people, but anyways, a little bit, not super socially adept at age, whatever, 6, 5.5, whatever I was, 6. And I found out, I used to go home for lunch, and I found out that in the morning, I found out that in the afternoon, there was supposed to be a big parade in the schoolyard, a cleanup day parade. And I don't know how I had missed that memo, but I really didn't know until the morning. And, my go-to person was my mother, but it happened to be that my mother was working, she was substitute teaching for her sister's school that day. So I went home for lunch, and I told my father, who was a professor, mathematician, scientist, but very aloof on the human level. I told him that we have a cleanup day parade and I need a costume. So he took a piece of paper. Did I already say this in a live? It seems like maybe I said this. I'll say it again. Anyway, he took a piece of paper and he turned it into a cone, better than I just did here, and he stapled it, and he told me, this is a hat. It's a great costume. And I believed him because I was super naive. So what happened was, when I got to school and I saw everyone was outside and they were wearing amazing costumes, they were dressed up like brooms or cleaning ladies or, whatever it was, bottles of soap. And I looked at this piece of paper stapled together, and I just realized, sometimes you have a realization. I realized in one fell swoop, in one horrendous moment, that I was clueless. And so were my parents. In other words, I came to the conclusion at that moment in the past that I did not have what it takes. And that I was like, I don't know what's going on. Everybody else does. And there's no one to help me. And of course, it wasn't so completely verbal, but it was so verbal. And I think this is the second time I'm actually mentioning this, but it had such a pivotal effect on me that I'm still working with it until this day. Now, we also come in with past life memories, and we have in our DNA, the DNA carries genetic memories and carries the things that happened in our ancestral line, so that we're prone to, whatever, alcoholism or procrastination or, anger or whatever it might be. We've all got stuff. So as we carry and as we live our lives, we live into or through that stuff that we're predisposed to, and then our early childhood things, and then we create more of the same. So what happens? We're carrying all that past into the present, as if the past is on top of the present. There's no room to move. And then we carry that into the future. So in the past, I was a person who realized I was clueless, and, you know, I had this trauma, this emotional trauma. And in the present, I'm still that person. And in the future, I'm going to be that person. So we're piling the past on top of the present and the future. And no wonder that it's hard to move. So looking particularly at relationships, but here this is a fractal. When we're talking about forgiveness. So where does forgiveness come in? When something happened, but it was somebody's, so to speak, fault. Someone hurt you. You hurt yourself. Or God let you down. Or life let you down. You know, whatever it might be. So when that comes, there's a blemish, a pagam in a relationship. Again, that relationship could be with yourself. It could be with someone else. Or it could be with the creator. However you think of that, that really doesn't matter. But what matters, what's important is that from now on, your identity, your wiring, the filter through which you perceive reality, that generates your thoughts and your words and your actions, that creates your results. So that past is being carried at every moment and everywhere you go, every thought you think, every decision you make, every interaction you have. So the past is continuously flowing into and covering, burdening the present and the future. So what happens? How do you get rid of that? How do you change that traumatic past? So one of the most powerful ways is forgiveness. So forgiveness in this context is not just being a nice person and saying, okay, I forgive you, I'll let it go. Forgiveness means that you have to come to peace and resolution with something that happened in the past that you've been holding, that you have not been able or willing to forgive, so that at this point you clear the slate. And when you clear the slate, what happens? You're able to see things differently because you're no longer running every perception through that filter. We talked in a previous live about how when somebody hurts us, we continue to, or when somebody that we train people in our lives to expect us to behave the way we do, and they train us to expect them to behave the way they do. So when someone wants to change, let's say you want to change, but you expect yourself to kind of fail. Let's say you want to get into a fitness program, but 20 times, 50 times, 100 times you failed in the past. It's only one time. If someone else failed, you took that on as your failure. But as long as you're carrying that burden around, the present is smashed by the past. So to forgive, same with another person. If somebody has typically not seen you or not cared, or not been present, or not been kind, or has been abusive, or has been even unfaithful, whatever it might be, you're carrying that on top of the relationship. You are now trained to be on the lookout for that. We know that what we are on the lookout for, we bring to us as part of the co-creative process, that what we kind of put our antenna out for, we're vibrating with, or we're afraid of. So we're still putting our antenna out there. I don't want this. I don't want this. I don't want this. What is it? I don't want this. I don't want this. I don't want this. So automatically vibration like attracts like, and that vibration will attract more of that which we don't want. Here's a principle for you. When you operate out of fear and don't want, you probably always, but I'm going to say almost always, just in case there's a rare exception, create more of what you don't want. When you operate out of fear, which is kind of a fear of not being good, need, which is a fear of not having or not being enough, don't want, which is a fear of something occurring, wherever that fear is, when you make decisions based on fear, you're going to tend to attract much, much more of the same. So we want to invoke the mystical power to zero out that past, so that we are a neutral field, again, at the present moment, so that your life comes into a place of zero, so that you can receive something new. What is Elul about? Back to the first live in this 30 days. Elul is about rectifying the past, rectifying and completing the past. How do you complete it? You finish things, or you resolve things, right? So that they can now be in the past instead of on top of your present and your future, weighing it down. So Elul is about rectifying and completing the past as a prelude in order to prepare for, as part of preparing for a new future. On that behalf, we have the two paradigms, that the king is in the field. God is meeting us. He's coming. He's smiling. He's come into our lives. He knows who and what we are, and he loves us. And he's saying, come on, come on. If you want me, I'm right here. And the other one is Ani Dodi, I am to my beloved, and my beloved is to me, that we initiate in the circumstance where we see that God is actually right there with us, waiting for us to initiate. So really, we're also responding. But we're initiating from a love relationship place. Like, okay, let's put the past in the past. Let's get rid, let's finish this. Let's stop carrying that heavy burden of everything that wasn't good, of everything that hurt, of everything that went wrong, of everything that was a failure, of all the traumas. Let's put that in the past so that we can have an open space to co-create and receive something new. It's so powerful. So I'll give you a quick example, couple quick examples, then I want to go into the primary example, or not example, the primary path that I want to open for you or help you open in the month of El. So an example of you with another person, somebody, as we said, wasn't trained you to expect them to be a way that you really don't enjoy, on whatever level that is, anything from, fudging the truth to not being very reliable to being aloof to abuse, whatever it is, unfaithfulness. So when that person comes and asks for forgiveness, and you ascertain that truly there was, we'll talk about this perhaps tomorrow, truly that there was an awakening in that person. So first of all, you have to listen. Do I want to erase this past? What's in it for me if I erase this past? Do I want to facilitate, allow, participate in the erasing of that past and in creating a new future? So there has to be a compelling reason for that. And then it's super important to stop looking for the same old, same old. There has to be a break in time. That's where you let go of the past, like we did yesterday, let it drop off into the void, and visualize a future that you want, assuming that that's the future that the other person, the offending person, has brought to you, that they sincerely wanted. And then you've got to open. You have to open your heart. Because if you don't open your heart, if you don't open your mind, and if you don't start to start to extend your radar to look for the new behaviors, the new ways of being that correspond to that desired future, then you're going to automatically, by default, be vibrating and attracting more of the past. And in human relationships, that happens with great ease, because when we treat someone the way we used to treat them based on the way they used to be, it will trigger them generally back into that way pretty quickly, unless they're 100% resolved. And even then, let me tell you something that the Tanya says, the classical text of Chabad Hasidus. I think it's a quote from the Zohar, I'm not sure, but it says, "Panim, like water reflects the face that peers into the water. Kain lev ha'adam el ha'adam." The same thing is true with the heart of a person to another person. So the principle is this: when two people feel a certain way, and one of them changes, if the change is forceful enough, eventually they can hold that new space. Eventually the other person's heart will change as well. But if they don't hold it forcefully enough, the other person's heart is still in the same old place, and will pull them back there, because there has to be a mirror. There has to be a mirroring effect, ultimately. Okay, so that's something that we can understand when it comes to people. What about when it comes to God? The king is in the field. And this is what I want to end with. I'm going to explain and end with. And I feel that this is, I don't know if the right word is revolutionary. Let's say it's on the edge. It's not common thinking, but I've thought and prayed about it so deeply that I cannot find any cracks in this. Many of us talk about this switch from exile to redemption, from Gullus to Geula, from history to destiny, from a world of separateness to a world of revealed love and blessing and miracles, heaven on earth. So how do we make that switch? And in my school, www.gateofunity.com/school, I've been talking a lot about this new relationship, this relationship that Elul represents. I am to my beloved, and my beloved is to me, a love relationship. But that's not the relationship that most of us have with the Creator or with life, and certainly not in our past lives. I mean, all of us died many times, and probably not in a very nice way. If you don't believe in reincarnation, at least think of the genetic lineage, what's passed on. The children of Holocaust survivors have certain kind of upbringing and certain qualities, because that's in the ancestral line that was passed down. So these things are very real. We come in with predispositions. We come in with traumas, big traumas, lots of traumas, repeated traumas. And then in life, none of us seems to be able to escape any trauma. And generally we are predisposed through that lens of like, I have to protect myself from this. It's scary. It's not good. I'm not safe. This happened, so that will keep people, I apologize. I forgot the air conditioning. It's like in the 90s. I'm starting to sweat. So anyway, that predisposes us to not be able to try on this new relationship that Elul is all about, that Geula is all about, a love relationship. The king is in the field. I am to my beloved, and my beloved is yearning for me, is anticipating me. Remember I said, if you've been listening to everything, I said in a previous live that there in the Torah, there are various roles that God and man, in the God and man equation, in that relationship, God has the role of king and we as his subjects. God has the role of father and we as our father, mother, we are his children. God has the role of master. We are his servants. He's the creator. We are the creation. But God also has the role of beloved partner, intimate, love, passion, marriage. This is an example that's actually given when the Ta'ab Geula, that it's going to be the marriage between God and humanity, that when the Torah was given, it was the engagement, which contains binding rules of exclusivity, especially in this case between God and the Jewish people, the souls of Israel. We're very committed. We've made a contract, and the contract is very serious. But the benefits, I'm married to God, I'm engaged to God, so I just have to, wish, ask, and it appears that doesn't happen until the marriage, at least not in its completeness. So this is a relationship that is evolving, that is growing. But let's say that's all available. Let's say God is in the field, not just in Elul. Let's say that's the period that we are in history, which it is. We're like in a cosmic Elul the last many years. This is just the actual Elul to bring down, to do this, we're supercharged with the ability to do this rectification and this preparation, this transformation. So what if we're holding in our cells, in our neurological system, in our awareness, in our beliefs, in our inner thoughts, in our heart, in our bodies even, in our expectations? What if we're holding all of this negativity? And we say to ourselves, and people do say this to themselves all the time, it's normal to say it, it's a work in progress, but what if the inner thought is, how can I believe that God loves me? How can I believe he's never going to hurt me? How can I trust? I can't trust. It's very interesting because we're taught that trust, as opposed to faith and trust are different levels. Trust is predicated on faith because you can't trust God if you don't have the faith that he's all powerful, that he loves you, etc. But faith just accepts that God is good, and even if you don't see it, you don't understand it, sometimes you need some education, some rectification. So, we trust that in the end it'll all come out good. You have faith rather than in the end it'll all come out good. Trust is different. Anyway, trust is the belief, the confidence, the relaxed, emotional, cellular confidence, that peaceful confidence that it's all going to be good now. It's like, okay, maybe I didn't follow the rules completely, but I'm so close with the one who makes the rules, and he loves me so much, and he knows he knows I love him, and he's never going to let anything happen to me. How do you get to that level when things happen to you? Lots of things, and everyone else. How do you get to that level? And we're taught that trust, by the way, getting to that level is an absolute guarantee that things are going to come out in a way that is pleasant and good physically in this life. Way different from faith. Predicated on faith, yes, but not limited to the paradigm of faith. It's above reward and punishment. It's about love. That's the ani v'dodi li, the I am to my beloved and my beloved is to me. That's that relationship. That ultimate potential of that relationship, that we can co-create an Elul, if we choose, is that intimate. I know I want to be good to you. I want, like we say to God, I love you. I want to be good to you because I love you. It's not about reward and punishment. I love you. I want to be partners with you. I want to work with you in this project of the world. And please, be nice to me. And I'm kind of traumatized from the past, but I don't want to be traumatized. I want to be in a state of love, a state of trust, a state of happiness, pleasure, joy, union. So in order for that to happen, we must put the past in the past. Exactly the theme of Elul. We must be able to rectify and resolve the past. Now, this is a work in progress, so nobody is expected. None of us are expected to do this perfectly. That's not what's required. But we are invited. The benefit comes from actually consciously, willingly, willfully, I mean, with intention, with focus, and with working to actually step into that as much as we can. The more we can, the more we have created vessels for that new light. So what does that take in the aspect of forgiveness? And here's where I'm going to say something that is a little bit out of the box. This is what I was referring to before. So it's not just that you need to ask God to forgive you. In any relationship where there's a breakdown, yes, both parties need to, there's almost for sure both parties have things that they need to be forgiven for if the past is to drop off and stop weighing down the present and replicating itself into the future. By the way, that's what a virus does. I think that's one of the lessons from a virus. The virus is not alive. Our beliefs, our limiting beliefs are not alive. But the virus co-opts the cell, and the cell will then replicate the virus with it. So it takes over the life force. That's what these beliefs, that's what these traumas do. And then they replicate themselves from the past into the present, into the future, and then into coming generations and into collectives. It's a big deal. It's a really big deal. So to put the past in the past, it's not just to make amends, to do tshuva, as we say, to return, to awaken and to return. That is crucially important. That's the way we normally think about our relationship with God. But what about forgiving what happened between you and God? What about you forgiving? And I say this with a caveat, a warning, because I'm, as I say, it's out of the box. Like, it has to be from a place of humility and love, and in a way tentativeness, because God is God, and none of us is God in that sense, although everything is ultimately God, but not like the way the ego understands it. Like, none of us is the creator of heaven and earth, although we are part of that, and we are co-creators now. But to forgive means to wipe the slate clean. To forgive means to hash it out until you've said everything you need to say. It's not to override. You can't really forgive when you override. That's suppression. That's separation. So you have to be in relationship. You have to be in dialogue. You have to be in truth. You have to be in it together. You have to step up and understand, I am to my beloved is to me. And to really decide to make that a reality in your life. And then that means that when you hash it all out and you're doing it together with God, and you're doing it on behalf of the new relationship that the Torah, that mystical Torah, Chassidus, authentic Kabbalah, is telling us, primarily, particularly the Rebbe, but all of Chassidus, all of the Torah, telling us that that's what God wants also. But we can't step into that relationship because God has trained us to expect God to go on acting in the future the way he's acted in the past. So we are bringing that vibration, we are bringing that perception, we are bringing that filter into everything that is happening. We can't see the new, we can only see the old repeating, and everything that we could step into and help assist to happen as partners in creation, which is what we are meant to be at this time, co-creators, in the correct aligned way. So as long as we have not been able to forgive the past and to step into a new relationship with God, hashing out the past, seeking to be forgiven and to forgive, to wipe the slate clean, we are not going to be able to be zeroed out and open in that present moment, choosing and focusing from the future to bring the desired future, the destiny, into the present and make it a reality. So this is a deep, deep thing. It requires thought, requires prayer. But if you understand, or if you even allow for the understanding that this is a love relationship, that this is first and foremost, a relationship, that it's not just about you, and it's not just about your performance, but it's about moving from Not that we move away from it, we maintain all roles, but it's about moving from exclusively subject to the king, servant to the master, child to the father. But now we are aiming for the manifestation of the stepping into beloved to beloved. Partners, true partners, intimate, miraculous, divine. So that requires forgiving yourself, forgiving others, forgiving life. All of that past requires forgiving all of the past and forgiving the past with God as well. It's a deep thing. And the last thing that I want to say is, you don't have to do it perfectly, but to engage in it, you have to engage in it if you want to have the results. The last thing I want to say is, I'll probably talk about this more in the future, but there's a difference between the way that we live, wary, looking out for, danger, or looking to see if things are working in a new way, constantly looking back to see how it's going, and holding a vision. Remember I said, like water reflects the face, kamayim panim lepanim, kain lev ha'adam el ha'adam, so the heart of a person to another person. So this is man and God also, woman and God, human and God. So the heart that it said, there are many, many sources for this in the Torah, by the way. I'll just quote the Zohar, which says, when you show a radiant countenance to heaven, heaven shows a radiant countenance to you. It says, Havayet Silcha, that God is your shadow. There's so many different sources. So to initiate a new relationship out of the pain of the old, that's what Elul is about. And it's a two-way street. It's a two-way street to make amends where we need to make amends, and to offer an open heart and trust based on a vision. Here's what on behalf of a new relationship, a new life world. A new world is what we're talking about. Trust cannot be based on the past, especially if there's been any kind of break of trust, or even a perception of that. Trust, like a vision, has to be a commitment for the future. And it means aligning, ask, align, and allow. I suggest not to do anything without God and your team anymore. So ask for help with that. How do I forgive the past? How do I hold the trauma? How do I hold the vibration of love and of receiving and kindness when there's so many things that weren't that way, and there's still so many things that aren't that way? The more you can assume that it's your work to create new vessels from whichever part of the equation, I am to my beloved is to me, the more you assume that, the more power you will have, the more co-creative power you will have. So it's about leaning into a vision for the future. The last thing I'm going to say is, I don't even remember where I first heard this, but I've said it so many times. When you want to grow a plant, you plant a seed, you want to grow something new. It's magical, right? To grow something, a little seed, it actually disintegrates completely. And it's the earth that has the power to grow things. That's what the Torah explains, not the seed. The seed has the blueprint, it has the instructions. So when the seed disintegrates, the blueprint goes into the earth, and the earth grows this mighty thing out of nothing, out of sunlight, air, and divine energy and soil, whatever it is. So when you plant the seed and you want to know how it's going, you don't want to pluck it up, because then you kill it. This is very important, very, very powerful metaphor. You have to take care of the seed in the way that you have to take care of the seed. In other words, you have to be able to distinguish between what's your business, what's somebody else's business, and what God's business. And that is the way to live from a vision. Distinguish between what's your business, what's someone else's business, or your job, somebody else's job, and God's job. So when you pull up the plant to see if it's growing, you're trying to do God's job, and you kill the plant. When you have to water the plant and you wait for someone else to do it, or for God to do it, likewise. So this is key. When we're co-creating, we have to understand what's our job, what's someone else's job, our business, someone else's business, and God's business. And forgiveness is key to that, from every perspective, every which way. Asking for forgiveness, working for forgiveness, forgiving, working to forgive, whatever it takes to get to the place where we can touch essence. We can vision into and co-create from essence. That's the world we're aiming for. World of heaven on earth, no suffering, no death, no sickness, no poverty, no jealousy, no competition, a world of oneness, a world of blessings, a world of love, a world of co-creativity of heaven on earth. And then that's just the starting point. That's just the starting point. That's when the marriage begins. That's when the fun really begins. Now we're in the hinge. In the hinge cosmically in time, and we're in the hinge specifically in the microcosm of Elul. And we're in the 11th day of Elul. 11 is supernatural. 11 is the oneness that that precedes diversity. That's the secret of 11. Okay, everybody, take care. See you tomorrow.